Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our weekly Spotlight on History. I'm Helen Dellinger, Curator of the Manassas Museum, and we're back again in our temporary exhibition gallery, where we are continuing to examine individual documents that are on our display in our newest exhibition, Consider the Source, Interpreting Manassas History on Paper. But before we get to that, I have a great announcement for all of you watching, and that is after 113 days of being closed to the public due to COVID-19, we are hoping to reopen to the public on July the 7th. So we're working on adjusting our operating hours a little bit and getting the building ready to be safe for everybody that wants to come and see us. So check our website for information as that is officially released to the public. But we are excited to almost be ready to have our doors back open again, and we will look forward to welcoming visitors back to our galleries, museums, museum programs in the store. So that's our great announcement for the day, and now we'll jump right into our three documents that we're going to look at today. Now, the pieces in this section of the exhibit are from wartime Manassas. That's the section that we're looking at. We're going to look at two different letters and a newspaper that was published in 1861. So the questions that we pose here in this part of the exhibit are, what can you learn about war from these documents? And what do these letters reveal about how war impacted families? Now again, some of these things are a little bit tricky to see virtually, so we're gonna provide some information and try and walk everybody through it. Okay, so the first piece that I want to share with you today is this letter here that's dated July 26, 1861, and it was written by James Logan Dudley to his mother, who lives in Augusta County. Now, that's down in the southern part of the Shenandoah Valley and includes the city of Stanton, for those of you that aren't completely familiar with Virginia's geography. Now you may notice, as my great videographer Lisa gets up close here, one piece of this paper is smaller than the other one. That is because we had to go ahead and make a facsimile of the backside of this in order for everybody to be able to see more of the letter. So it's a copy on the one side. So anyway, here in this letter, Dudley is writing from a camp near Manassas just after the Battle of First Manassas, First Bull Run. His letter contains a vivid account of the fighting and what he experienced. And I'm going to read some of the lines that he wrote to his mother. They say we had the hardest fight last Sunday ever was fought. It is one thing certain, I saw hundreds of men and horses lying all over the field. But mother, I am truly glad the Lord did save me. But it is one thing certain and sure, we lost a heap of men, but not more than half the Yankees did. So that's just a little bit of the description that he wrote. So the question that we pose to visitors about this letter is, what can we learn from James about reading this letter? Now, while that quote might not tell you much, I read it exactly as he wrote it, but what you can't see is the way that he spelled a lot of the words. So we had to kind of puzzle through his writing. So several things come to my mind, but one thing that I kind of thought about was James probably doesn't have a formal education. The letter is full of misspellings and grammatical errors. Not a lot of capital letters throughout. It's almost one great big sentence through the whole thing. And I know it's hard to tell in this format, but that's one of the things that might be a good takeaway from this letter. Now, the fact that he wasn't really probably formally educated is not all surprising to me, since widespread public education in the United States wasn't really a thing until after Reconstruction. People did go to school, but it wasn't what we consider compulsory. So this is a great wartime letter, the first time we've ever had this one on display, and you're going to be able to see this very soon. So another letter from another war, this is the Civil War. We'll move over here to this two-page letter. Now this letter, you can see the difference here. It's got a double window here. She wrote on two separate pieces of paper. Now this letter was written by Mary Adams to her brother Taylor, who was serving in France with the American Expeditionary Forces during World War I. And the Taylor family were residents of Manassas. The letter is dated October 10th, 1918, so that's just over 100 years ago. And it's filled with local news of who's getting married, who's visiting Manassas, and other family matters. But what we found interesting about this letter, and we have dozens of these from Mary to her brother, but what we found most interesting are these lines. John has been stationed at Quantico about 2 weeks, but can't get home as he is in quarantine. There is a great deal of influenza in the camps around here, and also among the people in town and Washington. They have closed schools and places of amusement. So that's a kind of a timely quote for us today. So the question we pose here is, what does this letter tell us about Manassas during World War I? So immediately you know from that, you know, they're dealing with the effects of the pandemic, the Spanish influenza pandemic, and also what parallels can you draw between then and now? That's kind of an easy softball question there for everybody. So that's a really great letter, very well written, and it's just full of just fantastic news about Manassas. These kind of folksy letters are some of my favorite. So the final piece I want to share with you today, I'm going to back up here, is this big newspaper that we have here. We're only showing the first page. The banner of the paper is called The South, and this was dated July 26, 1861, volume 1, number 81, so the first year of its run, the 81st print edition. This paper was actually published in Baltimore, and this particular edition came out right after the Battle of First Manassas. Now, you might wonder why we're showing this, so I'm going to read you the first two stanzas of a great poem that runs the length of this left-hand column. It's going to be impossible to see with that small print. But here are the first two stanzas, and then the last part I'll read will be the refrain. So the first two stanzas go, "Butler and I went out from camp at Bethel to make battle, and then the Southrons whipped us back just like a drove of cattle. But then we got a master gun which gives us satisfaction. For 7 miles or just the space the Yankees like for action. Come throw your swords and muskets down, you do not find them handy. Although the Yankees cannot fight at running, they're the dandy." So that's a great poem. There's other stanzas that go along with that. So the backstory we provide in the label lets the reader know that Thomas W. Hall Jr., the publisher of this paper, was arrested and imprisoned in early 1862 without a trial. Union authorities picked him up and put him in jail, and there he stayed. The Lincoln administration, when people were questioning why they were doing this, and he wasn't the only publisher that was arrested, the Lincoln administration declared this to be a precautionary measure of great necessity for the preservation of the peace and maintenance of order in the state of Maryland. Now remember, Maryland was officially a Union state, but leaned Southern in its sympathies. So the Lincoln administration was like, we have to do this, it's necessary to preserve the peace. So now that you have that information, and you heard the poem, the first part of the poem printed on the front page of the paper, do you think that Thomas Hall's civil liberties were violated? That is the right of habeas corpus, the right to appear before a judge. That was a right that was guaranteed then. Or is that something that, you know, was okay to do? That's a question that we pose here. And also, what about the First Amendment to the Constitution, freedom of the press? That's one of the things that we hold most dear, freedom of the press. So he's printing things that are clearly pro-South in a northern state, but was it his right to do that? Was the Lincoln administration right? So great questions, all very interesting questions that I think would make for interesting conversations around your dinner table, and would that we could be together so I could have them with you here in the hallway. So that is all for now. Again, these are meant to be quick hit type things. That's all we have for today. Please join me again next week at our regular noontime slot on Wednesdays for Spotlight on History. Now, if all goes as planned, we'll be open then, so if you're here, you can join in on our live program and we can have a discussion, or you can continue to watch from home. So until then, I'm Helen Dellinger, wishing you a happy 4th of July. We'll see you soon.